Casuals of my channel who only watch the ragey, complaining videos about things I don't like imagine that I'm probably super snobby and hate everything. That is simply not true. I only hate most things. I rarely derive joy out of life, but when I do, these are the riffs that I like playing and I like listening to. Now, this is not a comprehensive list. This is not in any specific order. It's way too hard for me to run through and think about that. Please let me know some of your favorite riffs in the comments down below. Also, if you want to take part in this and help me make these videos, I often post things like, hey, name your favorite riffs on my social media. And I actually look through and read those. I definitely know some riffs off the top of my head, but there's so many great riffs out there, I could miss something. So I find it very helpful to get your guys' feedback. Go ahead and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can keep up to date with that stuff. Obviously, this would be a crappy list for me if there wasn't at least one Opeth riff on there, and in this case, there are 3 from their title track, Blackwater Park. That first opening riff is so freaking amazing to me. As far as from a listener's perspective, that is probably my most resonating Opeth moment. If I'm ever depressed or down in the dumps and this part of the song comes on right in the beginning, it immediately resonates with how shitty I'm feeling. Like there's someone else who has this massive despair and it's kind of massaging my emotions a little bit. On a more technical level, he combines very seamlessly these folk style strumming patterns. They're not like exclusive to folk, but that's a lot of where that strumming pattern is derived from. And also these folk style fingerings that he takes and makes it a little bit more of a denser, darker, more colorful chord. Pairing that with the massive amount of distortion and the fact that he quad tracks all those, it is just dense. It is so dense.
It's so dense. Every single image has so many things going on.
Fuck you, Rick Berman.
And powerful and full. And one thing that wasn't displayed here was the fact that he also has these whining Ebo guitar lines over top of it, kind of like a fucking spirit or a banshee yelling into the night distance. Like it's just awesome. And then once you're resonating with this despairing feeling that you feel like you have no control over and you're just melting in this anguish, it's let out with this next riff, which might be my favorite, I'm not sure, but it's just so brutal. It's like we take this rage of not having any control and just expressing it as raw intensity. Taking full advantage of that drop D open tuning, especially when I believe that is, yeah, that's the flat second of the scale. So it already feels foreboding because it's only a half step above our root and wants to push back to the root. But it's also mean because the tone and because it's the lowest of the strings, and strumming an open string is going to give you this huge sustain and great tone. And he tosses in this little lead line that really acts as a tail to the riff, but also at the same time is kind of like a precursor ushering to going back to the It has a very secular nature to the flow of it, where it never really settles very long, which also contributes to, in this whole song, just the mad groove, just sick groove. And that riff is so much fun to play. It's not super intuitive, I will say that, but once you get the hang of it, especially when you go to you kind of do the 1 fret off to open and then go to the 4th fret of the A string and go and then you hit that pinch harmonic. It's like, oh, so fucking nasty. Now this next riff that follows, apparently to some people, is like the best Opeth riff ever. I still don't fully get it, but hey, I will agree it's a really cool riff. It's a little awkward to play at times, though it does have its fun moments. I guarantee y'all have heard me play this riff before. This is Dream Theater on the Backs of Angels. I would say like it's the first verse riff, but I would also say kind of like the main riff or a motif off of the main riff, rather a development, whatever. I don't remember what all those fucking words are supposed to mean. This is probably my favorite Dream Theater song. This is the first song by Dream Theater I learned to play on guitar. It has this percussive E power chord, ba-da-bump, bump, ba-da-bump, with a melodic phrase of sorts as a tail. Then that tail changes with each subsequent playing of the riff. Then it ends with this little do-na-na-na-na-na at the end, which is just such a great way of capping off and moving into the next section, which I believe is the pre-chorus. Is that right? Yeah, it's the pre... I don't know. Something like that. When it comes to songs like these, it's difficult to pick out the specific names of the structure of the song. But that is already wickedly fun to play by itself. Then in the third verse, I believe, instead of doing the percussive E power chord thing, it uses a pentatonic phrase and then caps it with the similar phrasing from the second and first verse. So you're hitting the same notes at the end of each turnabout of the riff as you did in the second and first verse. It's a fun way of developing that same idea. He even ends the whole third verse the same way he ended the second and first verse, that little do-do-do-do-na-na. I love how seamlessly he turned it from being very metal driven into a blues idea, especially with the flavoring of that going from the octave to down to the minor third and giving it that little quarter step bend like you would in blues. And it's just like, oh, it's so bouncy and fun. So much fun to play. I don't know about you guys, but every time you sit down and pick up a guitar, I feel like there's generally one riff you always start playing just to kind of test it out, feel, engage how the guitar is and how your picking hand feels. You have heard me play the riff from Rising Force by Yngwie Malmsteen probably way too many times, but I love playing it. It's so fun to play, relatively seamless, massive attitude. Again, kind of blending that metal, hard-driven, pound you in the face aesthetic with a strong blues element. That open string legato pedal tone thing at the end really kind of gives it that more blues type of attitude. That is probably the riff I have played most in my entire life. I would be completely remiss if I did not include some Mercyful Fate on here. Holy crap, their riff writing, especially for the time, was well ahead of its time. I remember listening to the Mercyful Fate medley on Garage Incorporated, and when they finally get to the end of Corpse Without Soul, I believe it is, and then they kind of let it loose, and then you hear the the beginning of Into the Coven. That riff, and you just feel and see hellfire falling from the sky. That riff instantly to me was like, this is the essence of badassery, just fucking raw. It is a very simple idea based a lot in like old hard rock. I'm thinking things like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. But you pair that with tone, you pair that with random modulation in the middle of the riff, you pair that with a little half-step walk downs in the top notes, and you get something that has its own unique attitude and does have this kind of evil feeling to it. And then you get to the chorus riff, which modulates again and is just so mean because you're sitting there on the second front. Oh. Mercyful Fate did a lot of modulating and changing things mid-tune, and Mike Portnoy has even said they're kind of like the proto-progressive metal to an extent. Like they're not progressive metal. Technically, they're black metal, even though I would say not even effing close. Yeah, Mercyful Fate had a massive influence on me as far as learning riffs and riff writing and making more interesting ideas. A great example is this riff from Evil. I mean, there's a bunch of really cool riffs in Evil and a bunch of really interesting developments, but this one in particular is kind of like right at the end before the instrumental bridge out. It takes this like pop hard rock idea, but makes it like it's a really well-written metal riff. It could stand on its own, even though it does have a good melody over top of it. Modern day metal riff writing usually includes more melodic phrases in the form of single notes included in your riff. I like doing that a lot more, but this is just power chords and it's already building a strong melody in the foundation of the riff. That is something that is so freaking important in my personal opinion as far as good riff writing. I would also be extremely remiss if I did not include at least one Iron Maiden song in here. The intro to The Trooper is so freaking awesome and fun to play. Not even that difficult, but man, when you play it, you gotta do it with attitude. There's no other, you cannot play this softly. Like a lot of the song rides off of this gallop rhythm, which is supposed to help you feel like you're on the back of a horse in the middle of battle. And this intro is almost like the horns blasting before you're about to ride off and have to go murder some motherfuckers. Just such a strong pronouncement, just like, oh, we are in, we are ready to go to battle, we are ready to destroy. And another fantastic example of using great phrasing in your riffs. Dyer's Eve is easily one of my favorite Metallica songs. I love it so much. It is so raw and angry, and again, resonates with you when you're just in that mood. I'm just sitting there, dear mother, dear father. But yeah, that, I guess, second riff, the riff that's in B, is so insane, very difficult to play, but very satisfying to play. I'll confess, it's been years. I didn't practice this one up, so this is going to be a little rough and definitely a little sloppy, but you'll get the idea. Yeah, even though the timing of that slide from 2 to 3 is supposed to be, and I didn't do the dillian, I just kind of did a da-na-na-na. That was way too dry. I failed. This is obviously one of the moments where Metallica is at their most thrash, but I also think it really shines through just how much they were into punk. This is a super, super punk rock song, except like if punk rock had a lot more fucking balls behind it. When I listen to punk rock songs, I think of guys running around and throwing bottles at things and spray painting, maybe pulling a knife on you. When I hear this, I think about a fucking warrior with a club about to bash your fucking skull against the ground and use the indentation in your brain that he made as his toilet. He's going to fucking embarrass you and own you. That's why I love that riff. Last, this little known band called Demons and Wizards, who has the same singer and probably some other band members from a band you may be familiar with, Blind Guardian. This riff in the song Dorian. Ooh. That's how the song opens up, and it's just like fucking hellfire again, just oh, you see the sky turn red. You see the tips of the flames rising over the horizon. You see a blood moon in the sky. Like, it just reeks of evil. It's like a cross between dominating, foreboding, and you feel like you're about to fucking die. And it's a really simple riff. If you're not used to playing it, it can be a little awkward down picking all of those if you're not used to it. Real simple melody too. Goes an octave up, then up to the minor third, then down 1/2 step to the major second, then down 1 more half step to the minor second. Those chromatic walks, man, I love them. I obviously didn't get to hear this when I played it, but when it starts doing single notes up there and changes into doing the power chords and then moves those down, that's when the double kick comes in. And then it just becomes this just brutal feeling. Oh, I love it. It's so good. So that has been some of my favorite riffs and why I like them. Again, let me know yours in the comments down below. I might be interested to do another one of these videos with some different riffs. There's a bunch of riffs that I do love. Again, follow me on social media so you can keep up when I ask these interesting questions so you can help me make a better video for you. Again, that is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want to help me keep making badass videos, support me on Subscribestar. That is the only way I can keep doing what I do for you. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Rock on.